we were having an episode of the Joe Budden podcast in which we were asked to offer our take, our unpopular take, or what is a song that is popular? What is a record that everyone loves that we could do without?
Okay.
You would be shocked to know how many people chose Return of the Mac. There's another one right there. There's another. Even we interviewed Wiz Khalifa on a few days ago, and he also said Return of the Mac. Everybody says Return of the Mac. I don't know why people who do, and Jonte Austin hit me today and was like, anybody who says that is crazy. He said he's going to block anybody or unfollow anybody who says Return of the Mac is whack.
You do think you're one of the best,
as he should. He's right.
You like Return of the Mac?
That's fine. It's like earworm to me. It gets stuck in your head. I find it annoying. It's a tone thing.
Can I also preface this because I'm not sure if you guys saw, but the actor Miguel Nunez was just recently on a show, and he had explained that song initially was supposed to be given to Eddie Murphy.
Oh, I can see that. That makes more sense.
So when I listen to the song now, I like it even more now because that would have been Eddie's second. Eddie Murphy singing "Return of the Mac,"
or it would have been trash.
No, I hear the voice. I hear it.
I mean, I think like what would Party All the Time have been like if Rick James had sung it himself, or if he had given it to somebody who could sing.
What?
That song was made for Eddie.
Yeah, it was really made for Eddie. It's like kind of perfect for him. I do agree with that.
Certain songs are made for you. So when I listen to the Return of the Mac song, and I think a lot of people's complaints has been the vocals and they feel like it's a little annoying, it reminds me of Eddie a little bit.
A little annoying. Okay, so here's the thing. It comes
I'm grateful Eddie didn't get it, by the way.
And I have a visceral reaction to it. Hearing this Eddie Murphy thing is actually very interesting because I can now hear his voice singing it. And it does something different, maybe because he's a comedian. And I would be like,
exactly. You'd be clowning it.
No. It's just like, it's supposed to be like, my girl likes to party all the time. It's just like, it's a bop because it's Eddie and it's funny. And it's literally crafted for his voice.
It's
right?
supposed to be fun.
It's supposed to be. Return of the Mac, I feel like the singer, and shout out to him wherever Mark may be, really meant it in a way that then it becomes like I'm now assessing it as like a song that now stuck in my head and has this really weird tone to it that just doesn't do anything for me. You know, like my voice things I really like richer voices, deeper voices, raspier voices. There are things about voice that just get to me.
Mark to me is someone who heard the song.
To be clear, that he means Mark Morrison, the singer
Mark Morrison. Yes. He's someone who oversang the song, which is what made the tone of the song annoying. It was a song that was written for a non-singer, and they gave it to maybe someone who can sing.
Right. This is not about Mark Morrison. Like, I don't think he is a terrible singer. Like, that's the weird thing. But it is a literal song for, you know, the person at karaoke who's had many shots of tequila, that it'll be fun if people are just singing it and the crowd joins in. But because he was so sincere in the performance of it, it's like a class for me that doesn't work.
I get it.
Somebody said here, and this is fascinating to me because it makes sense. TMB said Jamie Foxx should remake it. I can hear Jamie Foxx singing the shit out of Return of the Mac.
I can.
I don't know why, but I might like it, dude.
I can. I understand why people don't like the song. It is a little bit of annoying. It is a little bit of too catchy. There's a moment where sometimes things get too catchy.
Yes, it becomes corny when it's too catchy.
There's a lovable corniness to it. There's a lovable.
No,
there is.
I leave the room when it comes up.
Almost like this is how we do it. Same thing.
So here we go. That was my choice when it came to me. Remember, I said this is how we do it. And again, shout out to Montell Jordan. He's my frat brother. I love him. And part of why I hate the song. I love Montell Jordan, but I hate the song is because white people got it, their hands on it. Just like Shaggy, it wasn't me. They got their hands on it. And once they got their hands on it, it just became ridiculous. Second, actually, no, not just that one. They get their hands on Shaggy, period. That's a whole other conversation. But second,
Shaggy made his music for people to get they white people to get.
Yes, and I think I've accepted that, and that's just who Shaggy is. When I've traveled abroad, I was by myself, which again, judge me if you want, but I would travel to these resorts, these all-inclusive resorts by myself, and I would just be like at the bar, at the pool, and Shaggy we play, and I'd be like in like Dominican or other places, and like I just remember being like by myself and thinking, why are these white people enjoying Shaggy so much? You're my darling baby, whatever that song is called. Like, I couldn't take it.
It's a tune.
And I was like, is this because I'm by myself? Like, then you start dating and you be like, oh wait, no, this song just sucks. It ain't about being alone. It's just this song sucks monkey balls, right? So then, I'm to use a technical term. Then I moved on, and I was like, Montell Jordan is in that slot. And part of it is that I'm a Kappa, and Kappas at Kappa events used to play you understand, to be a Kappa in the 90s, when your frat brother who just crossed into the frat has the #1 hit in the world, you're gonna play that shit all the time. Imagine if Drake was like well, I don't know what he'd be, maybe, I don't know. But
he'd be an AKA.
That's the joke I had, and I went out of my way not to say.
I'm sorry.
So bad for you, my brother. That is absolutely correct.
Oh, sorry to AKA.
he would absolutely make this a serious matter. Yo. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, sir. But
they gonna jump me if they see it. If he sees this, they gonna jump me, but it's fine. It's
okay. Man, I promise you, Drake hates everybody on the Joe Budden podcast just cause.
It's cool.
You ain't got nothing to worry about. But what were we talking about? Oh, right.
I want to know this Sade take.
Oh, right. So all this is prologue. It's a prologue Benon, as they say.
Okay.
So all of this is the prologue, or the prologomenon, as they say, to the actual conversation at hand, which is that as we were giving our takes, my dear brother Emanny says, I got one. And Emanny, what did you say?
I said I could do without Sade.
Right. Hold on. Let me be clear. You know how like I said Return of the Mac, or I said this is how we do it, or people said he didn't say I could do without a particular Sade song. This nigga said I can do all of her.
Yeah. So let me also, because I want to do this thing where I no longer take back my takes by trying to clean it up. So I want to say before I say anything, I stand on my take. She can go. That does not mean I don't acknowledge that she's talented. Does not mean that I can't hear a song and tell that it's a well-written song. She's just never been my cup of tea. Vocally, I do think a lot of her big records, key records, are very similar in tone, in tempo, in style. And as someone who kind of likes a little bit more vast difference, I like to hear more. And I feel like everything I get from her is very whispery. I hope
you read these comments, because
I know they're killing me. I'm trying not to watch it because I know they're gonna kill me. And listen,
you got a couple of acceptable.
Some people agree with you. Zakiya agrees with you, right?
Well,
agrees with you. She's beautiful, great, someone is soothing, but not a go-to.
I made sure I sat under my Stevie, my Marvin, my Prince, and my Michael pictures, just so y'all can know. I ain't just talking as someone who don't support or don't know R&B. But no, she okay, as someone who's very, very much so into jazz, and the lounge and the cabaret as type style, which she embodies a lot of within her tone and kind of the swing of the music. I just think that there's a lot more people who were way better at what she did that just didn't get the attention because they weren't either as commercialized or as marketable. Hate to say it. I think that she does.
Don't put too much dip on the chip now, boy.
You know what? I'll say it. I think she's a very great one-trick pony.
And what's that trick? Making life-changing hits?
Give me her hits.
I think Love Is Stronger Than Pride would be, for me, the top of the chain for me. But I think everything on Lovers Rock was amazing. I think No Ordinary Love from that was also on the soundtrack of Indecent Proposal was great. Sweetest Taboo from the Promise album is crazy. I love the Love Rock By Your Side from Lovers Rock album. I love Cherish the Day from Love Deluxe. Your Love Is King, which was back in the 80s. I think that was Diamond Life. I can't remember. I think that was Diamond Life. I loved, honestly, Soldier Love album. I thought the Soldier Love album was crazy. I thought Soldier Love album was amazing. I loved Baby Father on there, and I loved, of course, the title track. I like that whole thing. Even Hove did a remix to it. You know what I mean? Those would be the big Sade hits for me. Smooth Operator. Smooth Operator is another big one. I mean, that's a huge one.
So let's just say you name about 7 to 10.
Okay.
Still a great number for any artist to have. Shoot, one hit is great to have. Once again, I'm not saying she is not talented.
Of course, I get that.
But it's almost like when you do the I see a lot of these memes going around where they put like 4 separate artists in a box and they say one has to go.
Sade always has to go with you, though.
I don't know who's going to be in those other boxes, but I'm almost sure Sade for me is going to be the one that's always going to have to go.
So let me put 2 people in the box that I know won't go. Aretha Franklin's in the box. I mean, that's a kind of unfair thing, but Patti LaBelle's in the box. Right. Now
put Anita in there.
No. Well, Anita's in the. And if Anita and Sade are in there, Sade's going. If I take Anita out and throw in Stephanie Mills, does Sade still go? I'm trying to understand how deep your hate for Sade is.
Okay, it's not hate, and
I know I'm being silly.
In that instance, just vocally, I just prefer Stephanie Mills more. I just prefer, like, I'm gonna always want to hear her sing, even if I don't know the song. I'm gonna want to hear her. Hear Sade. I would rather go, and that's why I was so huge on bigging up Samara Joy. Samara Joy, who is amazing to me. I don't need to know the song. I don't know if it's a hit. I'll go to Dizzy's Club anytime she's in town and sit there and watch her from start to finish because vocally she's
the beast.
It's just, it does something.
That's how I am about Layla Hathaway. That's how I am about Diane Reeves.
Yes.
That's how I'm about Gregory Porter. I'm the world's biggest Gregory Porter fan. And it's the same thing. It's like when I hear there's certain things that it's just your tone.
So can I then ask a question to Emanny? This is interesting because I always ask in those box questions when one has to go, are we talking about the voice or are we talking about the discography? Right? Like those are different to me. Right. So like if I have 4 people in a voice, like Stephanie Mills has a voice I can hear, as you said, singing. She can sing, the ABCs, and I'd be happy because there's just a voice thing that I love and what she's capable of. But there are folks who I know people love, like I love as a vocalist, but I could actually do without their discography.
Now that's real.
Right? I think, and that goes for singers who I think are some of the best singers ever. Discography, I'd be like,
I mean, I wouldn't say this in a lot of places, but I mean, Rochelle Perel to me is one of the greatest singers of all.
Yeah, that's
you sure about who?
Whitney Houston. That's how I feel about Whitney. Okay. I think Whitney is one of the most talented, amazing. That is God's voice coming through when she gets to sing as Whitney sings.
Right. But Whitney ain't got 10 songs that I could
He belies that, right?
Yeah.
I truly belies that. And that's for all kinds of reasons that is the case. But to like hear Whitney live, like in the 80s, just her singing and being like, even that introduction when we have her singing Home on like television before she breaks, before the album drops, it's otherworldly. But then you get, I want to dance with somebody and my name is not Susan. I could literally live without.
That song stinks. Let's be honest. My name is not Susan stinks.
Okay. Okay. See, this is what I don't like. And let me tell you what I don't like. That is a fair take. That is a very fair take in regards to Whitney. But to hear that take and then to hear the Sade take and think the Sade take is off for anyone, to me is almost like it's almost
like, what's the difference?
It's no different. And I think Sade is held to I think Sade has the Lauryn Hill effect, right? And I'll explain what I mean by that.
You about to enter some dangerous water, my friend. Go ahead.
I think Lauryn Hill got to a certain point where she just did such an amazing job and disappeared. And I think we gave her icon status without her having to consistently build upon that one idea. So don't get me wrong. She did great with the Fugees, right? They classic album, great. Her next album is amazing, classic. That's it. There's no
Here's my issue with that. And I think some of it is gendered. Biggie got 2 albums. Lauryn got more content than Biggie. Biggie got 2 albums. If you give me Vocab, I mean not Vocab. If you give me what's the album Vocab was on? Blunted on Reality. Sorry, the Saki's coming through. If you give me Blunted on Reality, you give me The Score, you give me Miseducation, you give me Untitled, and you give me various features. She got as much work as Biggie, more or less. If you give me Jimi Hendrix, she got as much work as Jimi Hendrix. More work than Jimi Hendrix, right? But nobody's out there like, Eric Clapton got more, so he's better, right? There's a way that I think with Lauryn, we look at her relatively small discography, given how long she's been on the scene now, 30 years, 35 years almost. And we hold her to a different standard than we hold a lot of people who have similarly small discographies. I hear people shouting Big L out as one of the greatest MCs of all time. And Big L ain't got 10 songs. So I'm being dramatic, but you get my point. So
I agree with you, which is why I would never fight anyone back in having that conversation about Biggie being held at a higher standard than what he might have should have. Of course, he only gave us 2 albums. He gave us 2 amazing albums. He did give us a great amount of features and post work and all that other stuff. But yes, if someone wanted to say we should not hold Biggie to a certain esteem because of his output, that's a totally fair thing. I feel it's the same thing with and anyone at that point that wasn't able to really fulfill and live out their full term where we can actually see the growth over a decade of time,
which is something else,
which I'm cool with. I just think those people that get to give us that amazing thing and then dip off for 10 years and become very like secluded and almost the mystique is built around them. Like they get to revel in that for so long. And sometimes I'm like, no, you got to keep putting out stuff. There's people out here that are consistently working that are not living off of their previous work 10 years later and still being deemed icons. And don't get me wrong, for what Sade has done, for what Whitney and for what everyone has done, they are icons in what they have done. I'm not saying that they're not. But when I hear someone say that that's not my cup of tea, or that's just not my taste, I don't think it's so blasphemous. And there's a reason why they never grew with the times. What would Sade sound like today? What would she have sounded like 5 years ago?
She ain't dead. I mean, she gonna put out new music.
But she don't put out nothing. Would it be good?
Soldier Love has been 10 years. I'm old. Yeah, that's true.
Would it chip away from the legacy? Because,
I don't think so. I mean, you know what? I'll say this. It depends on the artist. And Treva, come on in with this. I mean, we've seen artists like Patti LaBelle, Aretha Franklin come back decade after. I mean, Aretha's first album came out in 1967 on Columbia, when she put up, you know, she goes to Atlantic in 1970, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
You see that whole run on Atlantic Records. Then you see the run with, I mean, she put out that Curtis Mayfield album for the Sparkle soundtrack. She put out Amazing Grace. She put out One Faith, One Baptism. I mean, she had then she came out with a Rose is Still a Rose in the aughts or late 90s or the early aughts with that Lauryn wrote for. I mean, so I've seen artists come back 40 years later. I mean, look at Charlie Wilson. Look at you freaking ass Ron Osley.
Can I pose this? If Nas had dropped Illmatic, it was written, and at that point he was already heralded like
the GOAT, one of the GOATs,
and then just stops. I don't think it's fair to continuously compare or say that he is one of the top echelon people within rap when he's not consistent.
Ooh, but we do it with Biggie all the time.
No. But I'm against that.
Fair enough. Well, I'll say we do it. You just saying we shouldn't. Jump on it.
I don't think we should.
Yeah. I mean, again, this more comes about like the terms of our debate more than whether we agree on particular artists or not, right? Because I think, Emanny, what you're saying, right, there's something about like either consistency and output that's central to the way that you're assessing this and evaluating it. And for some folks, I just think if like an album that you made changed things for me, you literally could do nothing else. And it would never change the fact that at one point in time, you made this timeless thing, right? It's like conversation I remember happening on, what's his name's Apartheid Clyde's site now, years ago, about hits versus, right, like bops, and then like when a song is a hit and when a song is like a classic, right? And so the ability to continue to make hits is a very particular skill set, right? And that deserves its own kind of iconizing that can happen. Like folks who can just come out and do a kind of thing and sound different and keep up with how things are sounding and doing that. Like I think, you see that more in writers and producers who are able to make that transition. Like I think about someone like a Babyface who across various eras of music has continued to make songs that can go to number one, right? That can still speak to a certain moment, or his album of like duets with like the younger R&B women. Like there's something very interesting about that. And I think there are people who have made a project or two that ground a particular era of music, that ground a particular sound or a movement or a moment. And no matter when you hear it, it still feels transformative, not just nostalgic, but it still has the power to do that thing it did when you first heard it. And so I think for someone like a Lauryn Hill, when people place her in that pantheon, I think it's because of that, and particularly like verses that are coming from the score, moving into, of course, Miseducation, even for some Untitled like myself, like it just, I can hear Lost Ones, and it's not just I'm thrown back to 1998. It's like I literally get that energy all over again. And so I think that matters deeply in terms of how I think about the process of who gets iconicized and why. And I think both are important.
So I'll say this. I agree with a lot of what you said. I do think that there's a such thing where we can also find a way to hold these albums to the esteem that they are, because at the end of the day, they are the albums that they are, but not also attach the success and the longevity of that album with the actual artist. First off, a lot of artists don't make albums on their own.
Of course.
So a lot goes into just that album being made, the producers, the writers, those people that a lot of times are really making the album and getting lost in just the artist being front and center, which I don't think is fair for a lot of people. Like when we talk about Miseducation of Lauryn Hill's album, a lot of people, the facade was that she came up with that album and that was her baby and that was her creation. And while, yes, she's a part of that album and she did a lot of people know now that she didn't create that album on her own.
Absolutely.
And she wasn't a larger factor. She was the vocal point for it. So yes, we should still hold that album to the esteem that it is. It's an amazing album, but I want more credit to go to the album sometimes and not the artist.
Yeah, I hear you on that. And I think with that particular point, like neither Lauryn nor the other creatives who are part of Miseducation have had that success with any other project, right? That is absolute magic that happens with that kind of collaboration. Magic. And I think collaboration is iconic and important, and I completely agree with that. I think part of it for me is just, right, there's so much that happens with that as collaborators, as music, that we could do better about highlighting and amplifying, because I look at like, who is Whitney collaborating with that made it me? Like, why are we doing these songs versus this kind of thing, right? What is the trajectory that her career takes as a result of the kind of collaborative thing that happens there? Sade, the band, is a very particular collaboration. It is a very consistent collaboration. It is a vibe for me, right? Why Sade works for me as a band is because if I want to feel a particular way, it's multiple ways. There is some kind of emotional range that I feel when I'm listening to Sade, like, there's a difference for me between certain things, but there is a particular thing that I love that Sade, the band, does, and Sade as the singer does, that like feels very unique to me.